Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to prepare a diamond specific resin tool. In this case I'll do a point, but I'll also talk about the wheels as well and how you can prepare them and why you need to prepare them and what to look for. So let's get started. So this here is a brand new, straight out of the bag, 60 grit Nova Point. And if you look really closely you can see that there's this seam that runs all the way up the burr on both sides. This would have something to do with the way that these are molded, and what we want to do, especially on these lower grit ones, so up to about 600, you want to get rid of these before you start using them too much for carving. What they do is they form a little bit of a ripple, because even though the point may be perfectly balanced, you get this unevenness and then it starts smacking up against the stone. It can cause some vibrations, but the most important thing is you want a nice smooth finish, especially if you're cabbing rather than doing a freeform carving. So you really want to get rid of these imperfections. On diamond resin wheels, I'll pop up a picture, but you want to get rid of the really sharp spikes on the surface. Now all of this you only have to do once, these should never come back again. On the wheels you just want to knock those spikes off and flatten them out a little bit. Don't go overboard, otherwise you're just wearing your wheels unnecessarily. And here, same with the points, you don't want to misshape them, but you also don't want to grind them away because that's just overwearing. You just want to make sure you get rid of these kind of molding marks. So what I'm going to do is quickly load this up and I'll show you how to fix it. And the same thing goes for the wheels as well. So if you've got wheels, just exactly the same process. So let's get into it. I'll just load this up now. Alright, so I've just got this loaded onto the end of the Dremel stylo. When you're doing the burrs, you can just use anything really as long as it's spinning. And the slower the speed, the better. So for this one, you'll see here on the dial, I've got it all the way set to 1. So it goes all the way up to 5, but we're just setting it flat 1, slower speed, which really, if I just turn it on, you'll see is very gentle. Now remember, whenever you're using Nova points, you want to use water, whether it's wheels, whether it's burrs, you always want to be using water. They're a resin, you don't want them to overheat, you don't want the resin to melt, anything like that. So always use water, and you can see here in the way that it's not really disturbing the water much, this is not spinning fast at all. The droplets aren't even flicking up more than a couple centimeters or a couple inches. Now you can use a lot of different things. Whatever stone you've got at hand, what I like to use is a piece of Mintaby opal that just didn't face very well. So just a stone that's rubbed. You don't want to use anything that's too coarse and too rough. You can see there's a little bit of color, but Mintaby opal's pretty shy sometimes. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this edge. We're going to turn on the Dremel. You can do this underwater if you want, but you don't really need to. Just like I said, don't let the burr get too hot. And all you want to do is just evenly, I'll try to get a good angle for you, just evenly start at the base and do a couple runs up the stone. It's like dressing a diamond sintered wheel. But instead of just trying to sharpen diamonds, what we're trying to do is just wear away that groove. If you're doing wheels, exactly the same thing. Just grab a piece of some stone you really don't care about and just work your way along. You can see we're trying really hard to keep the curve nice. Also with these points, if I just turn this one off, you'll see that the tip is not quite pointy. And that just happens. That's just a little bit of variation in these burrs. It always happens. But you can also start shaping your point if you want a specific kind of shape point on it. Really, I just want to get rid of the last of this. You can see it's pretty much gone over here, but we just got to keep going. And you can see it's a very fast process. There's not a lot to take off on these burrs much of the time. Sometimes you can get some really weird shapes, like a lot of the point missing. But most of the time, these are manufactured, I'm not sure how, but pretty well, pretty consistently. So you rarely get something that's too bad. I mean, I've got a couple points that have bubbles in them that must have formed at some point. Like this 3000's a little bit annoying because it's got that little hole just up here, but it doesn't affect the use of it. So we'll just give this a couple more passes. And I haven't sped up any of this footage, so this is real time just to show how quick and easy this is. And also, I don't bother doing this with the really fine grits because they don't cause that ripple effect in the surface of an opal because of how little material they're removing. you really don't take much off. And you can see here, that's getting there. It's pretty close. Just run your finger over it and feel that edge. You can still feel it's there. If we check the other side, because these always have two, yeah, it's still a little bit there. Give it a little bit of a harder push. You don't want to apply too much force. Keep the snow nice and wet. That'll keep the burr nice and wet. And yeah, nothing fancy. Just take your time. Nice and gentle. And just work away. Just want to get that point a little bit sharper. Alright, and there you go, it's as easy as that. Now the bit looks a little bit more worn. Trust me, it will cut a lot smoother and a lot better. So there's nothing to worry about. It's much better to look slightly worn when it's dry than to have these massive chunks where those sealing lines, ridges are. And you can see here on the end of the opal, it's not taken off that much anyway. You've just got a little bit of this residue. Of course, there's a little bit more in the water. I can see that there's some floating little bits and pieces, but yeah, you're really not taking off that much. You just need to wear off enough to get rid of those lines, and you're all good. With the wheels, you just want to get rid of those spikes. You'll know when they're gone because you can actually cut your fingers on those, whereas those wheels are quite safe when they're broken in. So you just want to break them in, or you want to break in your burrs as well. The results are slightly different, so we're doing it for different reasons. It's more important in the wheels to break them in because they will leave very vicious cuts in the surface of your stone, especially if you're working something soft like opal. When I'm conditioning my burrs, I always use Mintaby because it's one of the harder opals there are out there. If I use something like Cooperpedy, it's pretty soft, it takes a lot more time, and yeah, it's not as effective. So a nice hard stone, probably better not to even use opal. Sometimes I use an aluminium oxide dressing stick that I use for my sintered diamond burrs as well, but anything works. Whatever you've got lying around, as long as you're not caring about it, you just want to wear the burr. Of course, it does wear your stone or whatever you're grinding it up against as well. So keep that in mind, but yeah, it doesn't take that long, just a couple minutes and you're good to go. So now I'm going to get that burr to work and start carving another stone, so I'll see you in the next video.